What are we doing? Why are we recycling people who are way past their sell by date? James Carville, the 1980s have called and they want you back. Today, I'm going to be reacting to some commentary by James Carville, who at one point was a great political mind. He was instrumental in the Clinton era. Since then, he's had some good takes, but he's been wrong about anything to do with Trump, probably for the last 2 to 3 years, specifically leading up to the election where he was convinced Kamala Harris was going to win. So I'm going to just do my reaction, give my input, and make sure you like and subscribe.
Longtime Democratic strategist James Carville has some bold advice for Democrats if they want to, quote, save democracy.
So Carville appeared Wednesday on his Politics War Room podcast with the journalist Al Hunt. The two were discussing the current redistricting war between Republican and Democratic states when Carville suggested Democrats should take things a little further.
Let's listen.
If the Democrats win the presidency, the Senate, and the House in 2028, which is not impossible.
I have to say, I love that James Carville. He just brings it like it is as far as his presentation. He's actually one of the people that I looked at and it encouraged me to just do my podcast with what I have. Like if you look at some of the earlier videos, my video is a little bit fuzzy. My audio, even sometimes now there's some issues. The lighting isn't perfect. But look, James Carville is probably a multimillionaire. He just he just turns on a camera and wherever he is, he just films. And I'm not laughing because, I'm making fun of him. I'm just saying that's encouragement to just regular people, because quite often, on a completely different note, quite often we figure like we have to wait until we have the perfect studio and this, that, and the other. Just make good content and the rest will take care of itself. I'm not there yet. This is a tiny, tiny channel, but I'm here. I'm adding my voice and you can too. Like, don't think that you have to have all this stuff. Look at James Carville. Like, look at that's just his living room. And he's broadcasting all over the world. But anyway, let's get back to the take.
Possible. I don't know if you say likely or possible. I don't know what word but it's certainly not impossible. They are just going to have to unilaterally add Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia states.
Carville didn't stop there, however. He suggested Democrats follow through on an idea some of them have had for a while now, packing the Supreme Court. Let's take a look.
And they may have to expand the court to 13 members. Any of those things in isolation, I would be skeptical about. I would be cautious about. I would say, well, I don't know if that's the greatest idea.
Or if Trump was to say it. So all of those things you would completely tear apart, even though there's video of you saying that it's a good idea. If Trump was to say he's going to do it, or the Republicans, any Republican, you'd say, it's the end of democracy. Like, everybody would go crazy. And this is the thing that you guys have to acknowledge. Most of the ideas, left and right, are not new. No one is coming up with new ideas. To Trump's credit, he comes up with different ways of looking at things. The idea may not be new. He may be bringing an idea that's used in real estate or in business and bringing it to politics. That's different. It's not a new idea. But no one's coming up with new ideas. Everybody's just recycling ideas from the past, and that's okay. The problem is, like, the Republicans will say something that the Democrats said 7 years ago, and now all of a sudden, it's a threat to democracy. So this idea of packing the court or adding Puerto Rico, all of these things are purely about power. It's not about defending the democracy, because the democracy, depending on how you define the democracy, because obviously America is not a pure democracy, but like, the idea of defending democracy, what he's really talking about is keeping power on his side of the aisle. It's not about the democratic process where people get to vote. And sometimes people, the masses, will vote on something that you don't like or you don't agree with, like Donald Trump.
In the world, you're opening Pandora's box, or all kinds of things. If you want to save democracy, I think you got to do all of those things. Because we just are moving further and further away from being anything close to democracy.
In September of 2024, Oregon Senator Ron Wyden introduced a bill to add 6 more seats to the Supreme Court over the course of 3 presidential terms. Now, Wyden said he made the move to reform the court due to its legitimacy crisis.
Now, a recent Gallup poll found the Supreme Court's approval rating has fallen below 40% for the first time. 75% of Republicans approve of the Supreme Court's job, while only 11% of Democrats approve.
Now, that's purely a result of the fact that the Republicans are in power. And a lot of the cases are going on the side of the Republicans. So people aren't disapproving of the SCOTUS, they're disapproving of the decisions that are coming out. I can guarantee you that if the whole abortion Roe versus Wade thing had gone the way they wanted, and Trump's immunity had gone the way they wanted, and all of those things had gone the way that they wanted, they would say, yeah, the Supreme Court is great. The problem is, at this point in time, in history, it's more heavily tilted towards the conservative. But then you have like Amy, I forget her full name, but she can go either way. You have some Supreme Court justices like that will always vote down the party line. But then you have others that can go either way. And there are some times where it's unanimous, except for Ketanji, where she just does something random. I don't think she's proven herself to be a good jurist. I feel that she's been a good political activist. But as far as interpreting the law and interpreting the Constitution, I'm not sure that she has done that very well. And even some of the people that lean to her political slant have done some dissents to just kind of tell her that she's not really fulfilling her duty as a Supreme Court justice.
The poll was conducted from July 7th through the 21st. Listen, I wholeheartedly disagree with James Carville. I don't think this is a good idea. I think it's been battle tested. Back in the day, Franklin D. Roosevelt tried this when he wanted people to get on board for the New Deal, and it was met with criticism from his own party, but everyone else in the country. It was like, no, let's not try to sway the Supreme Court. But as much as I disagree with James Carville, I think that Republicans have done a good job at breaking all the rules. So like when you talk about 2016 and Amy Coney Barrett becoming a Supreme Court justice to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I think that's a ridiculous replacement, especially after you skipped over President Obama's.
What rule was broken?
No, because they didn't allow President Obama to go ahead.
And she's about to put her foot in her mouth. Lindsey is about to put her foot in her mouth because, as was rightfully asked, what rule was broken? No rule was broken. There's some precedents. There's some ways of doing things that sometimes are standard, sometimes aren't, but no rules were broken. And this idea that Lindsey's bringing up that, the Republicans always stand in lockstep, that's so not true. The Democrats do, but quite often there's a range of opinions on the right. That's not to say there aren't a range of opinions on the left, but as far as the key political leaders, they tend to be in lockstep. So everybody was saying nothing to see here. Joseph Biden is fine. He fell up steps. Like, who does that? He fell up steps, but you didn't see what you thought you saw. It's a stutter. It's a stutter. That's what the problem is. So they do stand in lockstep. I think the Republicans, that's probably their problem. They don't. They will work against their own best interest. They have a slim margin. And quite often it's all held up by 1 or 2 or 3 people. Whereas with the Democrats, they tend to just vote right down that party line. And if they had a slim margin, that margin would still be more powerful than the Republicans' slim margin because they would always vote the same way. Lindsey's about to put her foot in her mouth, though. She's about to come up with an analogy that completely backfires.
And move forward his Supreme Court justice pick.
That's not a rule.
Because Mitch McConnell they don't play the game fair. It's like if you and I are playing chess and you're just jumping around like not playing correctly. Yeah, sure. Nobody makes the rules. We can actually do whatever.
Wrong. There are rules to chess. So she just put her foot in her mouth, not knowing what she's talking about, talking out of passion instead of fact. I'm gonna rewind that a bit and then play that bit again.
Because Mitch McConnell they don't play the game fair. It's like if you and I are playing chess and you're just jumping around like not playing correctly. Yeah, sure. Nobody makes the rules. We can actually do whatever we want.
No, it'd be like
game.
I did a legitimate move you just didn't know about. I en passanted.
Mitch McConnell said he had
and you're like,
such
what
an
is that?
issue.
I didn't know what weird thing pawns
Let's
can
jog
do.
everybody's memory.
See, this is the thing sometimes, and this is gonna sound so chauvinistic, but it's not. Sometimes when you're having conversations, meaningful conversations or debates with women, they will let their emotion take over. So Robbie, if you look at the smirk on Robbie's face, which was a little bit smug, she said something about chess. Now, chess has very clear rules and you play by the rules. You can't just do whatever you want. You can't just move your pawn and, backwards, right? You can't do that. So what he's saying, and it's a great analogy, she brought it up, but he applied it better. Like sometimes the other side doesn't know the rules. They don't know some of the things you can do. But because they choose to exercise a rule that you're unaware of, that's not cheating. That's just them being better at the game than you are.
Memory and paint the picture fully. Mitch McConnell said he had such an issue in 2016. Allowing Obama to pick on his way out the door a Supreme Court justice, okay? And then right after that, on the heels of that, he allowed President Trump to pick a Supreme Court justice at the end of his term. So you cannot be swaying that much unless you're trying to be partisan. The Supreme Court is supposed to be apolitical. And so by doing things like that, it makes the trust around the country.
Apolitical.
No, it should be apolitical, though. That's the institution. So you already telling me as a Democrat and Republican that you don't believe in this institution. So then let's just make it political then. Let's stack the court then. We might as well move forward.
Well, the reason,
as much as I disagree with it, we might as well move forward with that tactic if it's truly not going to try to be apolitical.
the reason not to do that is like, well, look at James Carville's excuse for it. He's like, we got to save democracy. Democracy is going to be saved. And then it's like, okay, you have to save democracy by what? Finishing off all the institutions of democracy. You want to add the Supreme Court. You're just going to make it totally. Whoever comes into power appoints however many new Supreme Court justices. Well, then it's not going to have any independence from the executive and the Congress whatsoever. And that doesn't seem like a good idea because your party is not going to rule forever. So we're going to have to set it up so that, like he's saying, that's what we should do.
See, Robbie is making a good argument. He's not defending the thing. So like what Lindsey did is she made an emotional argument. Well, if they're going to do it, what Robbie is saying is it's not a good idea for this reason. What Lindsey was saying is at first she said she doesn't agree with it, but because potentially the Republicans are better at the game than we are, then we're going to do this thing that I don't actually agree with. What Robbie is saying is no, it's not a good idea. But he's also accepted reality that the Supreme Court is not apolitical. We're human beings. We have views and we have opinions and we have thoughts and we have a worldview. Every administration places a Supreme Court justice that aligns with their worldview and their values. So it's not going to be apolitical. You do have some Supreme Court justices that, as I said, Amy Coney Barrett, she can go either way. And a lot of Republicans have been disappointed in her for that reason. I'm not going to say she's apolitical. She is conservative leaning, but she's trying to interpret the law, which means sometimes it goes against what Republicans would want to do. But then you have other people like Ketanji who just always, you just know what she's going to do. She's going to do the most radical thing despite the law. So this idea of stacking the court, I guess it's stupid anyway, because everyone that goes in is just going to add people that think what they think. And as I said, we're going to end up with like 100 people and then no one's going to take it seriously. So what Robbie's saying is just pump your brakes. Let's keep it the way that it is. Let's accept that it is not apolitical and let's not pack the courts. But Lindsey is saying that we should pack the courts.
If Democrats take all three branches, or both houses of Congress and president.
Because you need that in order to.
Yeah, and then Republicans will do it back. And the only thing stopping Republicans from adding like 800 frothing at the mouth MAGA extremist people to the Supreme Court is that they don't want to do that. And then if Democrats win, they'll add like Antifa to the Supreme Court or something. There's just like a kind of a peace arrangement to not go down this road. So the second Democrats do it, Republicans will do it.
I think that I don't like the direction this week has been going with even the redistricting conversation and like, oh, if you do this in Texas, I'll do this in a liberal state, and just continue to stack and stack and try to make rules redistrict in a way that benefits a party. I think that we should have some faith in our institutions and try to continue to move forward and allow them to work. And so at the same time, Democrats cannot be the people that get bulldozed over every time, right? Republicans have,
but they don't. Like, they don't get bulldozed. They own most of Hollywood. So most of Hollywood is left leaning. Most of the media is left leaning. Most of academia is left leaning. The only thing that conservatives have is, I don't know, Fox News, right? So it's not to say that that's a good thing. I'm just saying that, like, the power in most senses is on the left. So you have celebrities, like, what celebrity could come out and just be like, I'm a Trump supporter and not get backlash? But if you come out and say anything negative about Trump, people are going to love you. So that just goes to show that we have to accept the reality that people think the way that they think. They have the views that they have. We live in a very politically divided environment. Day to day, people get along just fine. But like, when you start talking about politics, we've come to a place, I'm not sure how we got here, but we've come to a place where, rather than how it used to be, you could say you're a Republican, I could say I'm an independent. We're fine. Let's have a beer, right? Now, your political ideology shapes everything about you. And if it doesn't align with what I like, we can't even be friends. That's where we are in a lot of ways. So we have to accept that. We have to accept that the Supreme Court is a political body, just like the Fed is a political body. Look at all the things that they did leading up to the last election to make sure that the economy had a soft landing, that Kamala Harris could win. It's obvious that that's what happened. But now they won't reduce the base rate because they want to do everything that they can do to undermine what this administration is doing. So we accept these things and we move forward accordingly.
But backbone by playing games, like not allowing President Obama to pick a justice, but then allowing Trump to pick a justice at the end of his term.
Democrats
playing games. So Democrats should join the game. People get mad at Jasmine Crockett for joining the game. Trump's game of being disrespectful, rude, and direct, right? So Democrats need to join the game sometimes. And even though I don't like it, they cannot just sit back and constantly get bulldozed. And so in that way, yes, stacking the court would be playing the game, but then we'd open up Pandora's box to endlessly play the game.
If Democrats controlled the Senate and there was a Republican president and a Supreme Court justice died and a Republican president picked a nominee, the Democratic Senate would never, ever, ever vote to confirm this person.
Can I just say, this conversation is every man and every woman since the beginning of time. The man is making a logical, well thought out presentation of ideas. The woman is emotionally tied into it and just trying to prove her point. Quite often I have conversations with my wife and this is the facts. These are the facts as I see it. I'm not saying my facts are right, but I'm laying out facts. And she's having a completely different conversation, which is an emotional one. And look at Robbie's demeanor, look at his face. A little bit smug, but then look at Lindsey's. She's getting flustered because she's having an emotional conversation. And then it tends to get worse because the more calm you are as a man, or Robbie is, the more emotional the woman gets. But just in watching this, that's what I'm seeing. It's quite funny and quite interesting.
The reality of the world we live in now is that if there's a vacancy on the Supreme Court and the president and the Senate are controlled by opposite parties, the vacancy will not be filled. That's just how it is. That's
the reality is that Republicans do a great job of staying in lockstep with one another and following the guidelines. The reality is that Democrats fail to do that sometimes. And sometimes Republicans put the person like Trump over the party, over the policy and the people, because they stay so much in lockstep. You know what I mean? Like changing their stance. Like even you said MAGA is going to change their stance about Epstein because it's lockstep.
Trump is the policy.
No, he's not. He just follow whatever he does is not a policy.
That's how.
But they don't follow whatever he does, and they do call him out. I hear a lot of people say, "I don't like that Trump is so mean," or "I don't like his mannerisms. I don't like that he does the name calling. I don't like that he's childish." Lots of Trump supporters say that, but the thing is, They take him seriously, but they don't take him literally. I've heard someone say that. Like Trump supporters take him seriously, but they don't take him literally. People that don't like Trump take him literally, but they don't take him seriously. That's why they always get caught up in a thing that he says, because they're taking him literally. But directionally, the things that he's doing tend to make sense, or at very least, he's thinking outside of the box. So he's not thinking the way that politicians have thought for the last 20, 30 years and got the same result. So he's at least thinking differently. He may not get the result he wants, but by doing the same thing, you're going to get the same result. That's the definition of insanity.
Base feels.
Yeah, that's
Republicans love Donald Trump.
Yeah,
they
but
love him.
He has to be allowed.
Democrats
to be
don't know
flawed.
what this feels like because they don't have someone their party loves.
Okay, but even if they did, I would hope that you hold their feet to the fire and make them do the things that they, one, promised on the campaign trail, but then two, that actually affect you positively. People cannot just blindly support people, but that's what Republicans do well. I'm giving kudos. I'm just telling you, Democrats need to start doing that. So that requires, not breaking the rules, but, like bending them a little bit, like.
Let's just abolish the Electoral College, abolish the Senate entirely. These are all Democratic ideas, by the way, because we're saving democracy. Saving democracy, preserving our country by fundamentally remaking all of the actual institutions that have existed for 200 years.
But you don't trust these institutions. The same people are complaining.
I'm saying it's
the whole
hypocritical
MAGA base
for Democrats
doesn't
to
trust
say
it.
Neither do you. Neither do you, Lindsey. And neither do most people on the left, because they say that these institutions were formed by racist white men. This is the thing that I struggle with. And are they hearing themselves, right? So on the one hand, they'll say that, it was racist slave masters that framed the whole US and this whole system is racist. Yeah. But then on the other hand, when Republicans are challenging certain things, they're like, you're destroying our great foundations. Like, just be consistent. And this is the thing. It's the inconsistency of the principles they try to apply. I was reading something by Scott Adams, and one of the things that he said, he's like, if you live by principles, you can test your principles. So you can say, well, I'll apply this specific principle to this situation, and this situation. You should get the same outcomes. If you get different outcomes, then you need to adjust your principles. This means that I can hear something that Trump says, like the fact that Trump cheated on his wife potentially. I condemn that because I have a principle that a man should be faithful to his wife, period. Right? So if you have those principles in place, it allows you to call people out. But that's not what happens on the left. So they'll have on the one hand, she's saying that Republicans don't respect these institutions, but on the other hand, on the left, the liberals are saying that these things were put together by racist people. So which one is it? I'm going to rewind that a little bit because she did completely contradict a lot of the axioms of the left.
Saving democracy, preserving our country by fundamentally remaking all of the actual institutions that have existed for 200 years.
But you don't trust these institutions. The same people are complaining.
I'm saying it's
the whole
hypocritical
MAGA base doesn't trust it. But if the MAGA base doesn't trust the institutions and we keep politicizing them, then why keep them as is? I think the loudest call has been for a complete change in the way our government's run and a lack of trust by constituents on both sides of the aisle.
I'm for restoring our government back to the vision of our founders. It has grown out of control beyond the prescriptions of our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, and I want to turn that dial back down. Let's go 1776. Let's go, not 1776, that's before even the Constitution, but let's go back to the earlier days of the views of what our founders were for how government would be constrained, be more federalist system, have more independent autonomy and decision-making by the states. So instead of these very divisive social and cultural battles taking place via the landscape of federal, national government policy, we can just let states do what they want, and this state can do it that way, and this state can do it that way.
And I think that makes sense because it kind of goes back to a biblical principle, which is as for me and my house. So the closer you can get to the individual, the better. The federal government should do the big things. They should have an army. They should make sure that the streets are safe. They should make sure that, people who cannot work have some type of safety net. but they should stay out of the rest of it. Each state should then make their decisions, because there's 50 states. So you have the opportunity, some people do, you have the opportunity to be able to move somewhere where that state's values and laws align with your personal values and those that would be better for your family. So I do believe in the whole federalist thing. I do believe in the federal government having certain dictates. However, the state being the seat of power, which is why it's very important that you vote in your local elections. You find people that will just vote for the president, but the local elections, the councilmen, all of those things shape your life a lot more, and they also then determine and dictate who we get as the president. So I agree with Robbie on this, and he's making a very solid argument. Some people may disagree with the structure of government because they may feel that the government should be involved in more. So that's kind of more on the side of a socialist type of structure. But I think, yeah, the government should stay out of it. Let me work hard. When I work hard, the spoils of my work should go to my family. I should be able to protect my home. I should be able to have things that I pass on to my kids without being taxed again. I shouldn't have to subsidize things that I don't believe in, all of those type of things. And I think fundamentally, that is the conservative mindset. I'm not a Republican, I'm more of a independent, but I think the conservative side of things say, I will take care of my home. That's my responsibility to protect my family. The government will have kind of like a safety net if needed. And the things that I believe in and the causes that I want to support, I'll support with my money. Don't take my tax money to support things that I don't agree with.
Like this state, you can move here. And that would be that's my remedy for making us less at each other's throats. We need to win the government, and then we need to fundamentally remake it in our image, and we need to control the Supreme Court.
I hear you, and I agree with you.
Power,
I agree with you. But
then there's less of a reason to do that.
When you think about the consistent things that the Republicans are doing, then it disagrees with what you're saying. They're trying to gain political power, so they're redistricting in Texas.
Right.
They're trying to gain political power, so they're putting people in the Supreme Court that have allegiance to President Trump for the most part, right? So this is like...
I don't think you can say that people on the Supreme Court have allegiance to President
Trump.
Okay, but
they're not
apolitical. They rule against him.
They're not apolitical.
Well, none of them are. The Democratic ones aren't apolitical either, but they're ideologically independent of Trump. They have views and ideologies, obviously, but they're not. They rule against Trump all the time.
All the time. That's not
because they're not accountable to MAGA voters.
A new report saying Trump is looking to get involved with the high-stakes New York City mayoral race. How Mamdani and AOC are responding after the break. Don't go anywhere.
I've done a lot of videos on Mamdani. I actually made a video, and I'm not going to say I regret making it, but I was saying we need to probably get him to be the New York mayor, because what he will do will be a wake-up call for the rest of the country. And I was just stating the fact that, like, Trump was a response to Obama. Biden was a response to Trump. So what happens is you have a regime or an administration, and if we don't like it, then our response swings completely in the other direction. But the more that I hear about Mamdani and people getting on board with a lot of his ideas, as a city that I love, that I grew up in, where my daughter still is, I don't want him to ruin it. And the ideas that he's putting forth as a millionaire, his family's worth tons of money, as he's putting ideas that won't ultimately impact him. And quite often with academics and with the socialist experiment, it's an idea that they can put forward. The people that put it forward tend to be wealthy aristocrats or academics, and if it goes wrong, they have options. But the people that suffer are everyday working people. That's it for me. That's my reaction. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share it with someone it might trigger. I get a lot of stuff wrong, and you tell me in the comments. This is a really small channel, but I'll do my best just to share information. I try not to attack people. I try not to be mean. I do my very best to just provide a nuanced view. And it's my view. I'm just a guy with a Wi-Fi connection and a camera. I'm not a political analyst, but hopefully I've made you think about things a little bit differently. Some people watch but don't subscribe. Your subscription means a lot to me. I do my very best to respond to the comments, even the mean ones. I appreciate you watching, and make sure you check out some of my other videos.